The day my stepfather stood up at my badge pinning ceremony and called me a liar in front of 200 people, I was wearing my dress uniform for the first time. I remember the weight of it. The fabric was stiffer than I expected, pressed sharp enough to cut. My hands were trembling, just slightly, not from fear from the years it had taken to get there. 7 years of working nights, filing reports, running calls, studying for the sergeant's exam twice because the first time I failed by 3 points and cried in my car for an hour before driving home. 7 years of becoming someone he told me I would never be. His name is Ray. That's what I called him, Ray. Never, Dad. Because I learned early that a title has to be earned. My mother married him when I was 9. He came into our lives wearing a smile like a salesman and a voice that could charm anyone in a room. The first few months, he was kind. He took us to dinner, he fixed the leaking pipe under the sink, he told my mother she was beautiful, and she laughed in a way I hadn't heard since before my father left. I wanted to love him. I genuinely did. But kindness, I learned, was Ray's opening move, not his character. By the time I was 11, the criticism had started. Small things at first. My grades weren't good enough. My room wasn't clean enough. The way I ate, the way I laughed, the way I took up space, all of it was wrong, according to him. My mother stayed quiet. She had a way of making herself small when Ray was angry, like if she could just shrink down far enough, his attention would pass over her and land somewhere less important. It usually landed on me. I won't walk through every detail of those years because some of it still lives in a part of me I've had to learn to lock carefully. What I'll say is this: Ray never left marks where anyone could see them. He was strategic in the way that only truly controlling people are. The damage he did was quieter than bruises. It was the kind that lives in your chest, the kind that makes you second-guess your own memory. Wonder if you imagined the things you know you heard. Question whether you deserved the things you know you didn't. I left for the police academy at 22. Ray told my mother I was running away because I couldn't handle real life. He told everyone who would listen that I had always been unstable, difficult, impossible to reach. By the time I graduated from the academy and moved into my own apartment in Raleigh, I had stopped trying to correct the version of me that lived in his stories. I just worked. I worked like someone trying to outrun something, which I suppose I was. I pulled extra shifts. I took every training course offered. I made detective in 4 years, which my supervisor, a 20-year veteran named Captain Holloway, said was the fastest he'd seen in a decade. I didn't know what to do with the compliment. Compliments had always felt like traps growing up, something given with one hand and taken back harder with the other. My mother called occasionally. We talked around Ray the way you walk around a piece of furniture that's been in the wrong place so long you've stopped noticing you're doing it. She never asked about my work directly, but sometimes, near the end of a call, she'd say something like, "I'm proud of you, honey," in a voice so quiet it barely made it through the phone. I'd say thank you. I never knew what to do with that either. The badge pinning ceremony was held on a Friday afternoon in May. It was the kind of day that makes North Carolina feel like a postcard blue sky. Warm without being brutal, the smell of something blooming coming through the open doors of the Civic Center. The department had rented the main hall. There were chairs set up in long rows, little American flags on the tables, a podium up front with a department seal on it. 200 people, at least. Officers from neighboring precincts, city council members, families. It was the kind of event that reminded you why you started. I had been promoted to detective sergeant. It was the ceremony where the new rank gets made official, where someone pins the new badge to your chest in front of everyone. Captain Holloway was going to do it. He'd asked me a week before, and I had to look away for a moment because my throat did something embarrassing. I invited my mother. I told myself I was only inviting her, not Ray, but I knew how that worked. They came as a unit. They always had. She texted me the morning of, "We're on our way. So excited for you, sweetheart." I stared at the word "we" for a long time before I put my phone away. The ceremony started at 2. I sat in the front row with the other officers being recognized. I could feel the room behind me without seeing it. The murmur of voices, the shuffling of chairs, the particular kind of anticipation that fills a room before something official begins. Captain Holloway gave opening remarks. A city councilwoman spoke about community policing. There was a slideshow, and then they called my name. I walked to the podium. Captain Holloway was already there, badge in hand, smiling the way he did when he was genuinely pleased about something. not his professional smile, his real one. He said my name again into the microphone and listed what I had done. Cases closed, commendations, the Garner Street trafficking investigation that had taken 18 months and resulted in 11 arrests. He said the department was lucky to have me. I felt it in my sternum, that particular ache of being seen clearly. He was reaching for my lapel when the voice came from the back of the room. "This is a joke." The murmur died. Every head turned. Ray was standing between two rows of chairs, and I recognized the look on his face immediately. The tight jaw, the reddening at the collar. It was the look he got right before he said something he calculated to cause maximum damage. "She cheated her way through the academy," he said, louder now, the way someone talks when they want to make sure everyone hears. "She's been lying her whole life. Ask her mother." The silence in that room was the kind that has texture. Captain Holloway stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He had a way of going very still when things went sideways. I'd seen it in the field, and the stillness itself was commanding. He said, quietly and clearly, "Sir, you need to sit down." "I'm her family." Ray said, "I have a right to. You have no rights in this room right now." Captain Holloway's voice hadn't changed in volume, but something in it had sharpened to a point. He looked at the two officers standing near the side door. One nod, and they were moving. Ray didn't go quietly. He said 3 more things on his way out, each one louder than the last, each one designed to leave a mark. I won't repeat them. I stood at that podium and I kept my eyes on Captain Holloway's face because it was the only fixed point in the room that felt safe. When the doors closed, Captain Holloway turned back to me. He said, "Where were we?" And he pinned the badge to my chest. The room started to breathe again. Someone started clapping. I think it was one of the officers from the 3rd Precinct, and then the sound filled the hall like something that had been held underwater finally breaking the surface. I didn't cry. I had made a deal with myself about that, but my jaw ached for the next hour from holding it together. Afterward, there was a reception in the adjoining room. People came up to me, shook my hand, said the right things. I smiled until my face felt mechanical. Somewhere in my peripheral vision, I was aware of my mother standing near the far wall with a glass of water she hadn't touched, looking like someone waiting for a verdict. She found me around 4 o'clock when the crowd had thinned. She looked older than I remembered, which shouldn't have surprised me. It had been 8 months since I'd seen her in person. She had done something different with her hair. Her eyes, when they met mine, had the particular quality of someone who has been sitting with something for a long time and finally decided to put it down. She said, "I'm sorry." I waited. "I should have." She stopped. Tried again. I knew who he was. I knew for a long time. And I stayed because I was scared, and I told myself that made it okay, and it didn't. It was never okay. Her voice cracked on the last word. "What he did in there today, what he's done your whole life? You deserved better than that. You deserved better than me, for a long time." I didn't have a speech ready. I hadn't planned for this. What I said was, "I know you were scared. I was scared too." She put her hand over her mouth. Nodded. We didn't hug. Not then, that would come later, slowly, in the careful way that trust gets rebuilt between people who have a lot of old damage to work around. But we stood there together for a few minutes in that emptying hall, and it was the most honest we had been with each other in 20 years. Ray was removed from the property. I found out later that 2 officers had escorted him to the parking lot, where he continued to make statements to anyone nearby until the lot was mostly empty and there was no one left to perform for. He left on his own after that. What I didn't know until the following Monday was that one of the city council members present at the ceremony had filed a formal complaint, and that the footage from the venue's security cameras had been requested as part of a review. Ray had made a scene in a civic building during an official department event. That had consequences that extended beyond my personal history with him. I won't pretend I felt nothing when Captain Holloway told me. I felt something I didn't have a clean word for, not exactly satisfaction, more like the sensation of a weight I had been carrying so long I'd stopped noticing it finally being acknowledged by someone else. Like a second person could see it now. Like it had always been as heavy as I'd said it was. The weeks after the ceremony were strange. My phone rang more than usual colleagues. A few reporters from the local paper who had heard something and wanted a quote. I declined to give. And my mother, who called every few days now, tentatively, like someone learning the weight of a new habit. I let most calls go to voicemail and listened to them later, in the quiet of my apartment, on the couch with my shoes still on. I started sleeping better. I noticed that first. Then I noticed I was cooking actual meals instead of just eating whatever was fast, which had always been my stress tell. I bought a plant for my windowsill. I realize how small that sounds. But the plant mattered. It meant I was thinking about something that needed to be kept alive past the end of the week. Captain Holloway called me into his office about 6 weeks after the ceremony. He told me there was a community outreach position being developed, a unit specifically focused on domestic violence intervention, connecting survivors with legal resources, housing, job training. He said the department wanted someone to help build it from the ground up, someone who understood the work from the inside. He didn't say why he thought of me. He didn't have to. I said I'd need a week to think about it. I didn't need a week. I said yes. The next morning. There's a file on my desk, now a growing one with case notes, resource contacts, intake procedures we're still refining. There's a name on the door of the small office I've been given. Domestic Violence Resource Unit. The plaque is temporary, a printed paper in a plastic frame. We'll get a real one when the budget clears in the fall. I think about Ray sometimes. Not obsessively, not the way I used to, that constant background static of his voice telling me I wasn't enough. I think about him the way you think about whether you survived. It happened. It shaped certain things. You dressed for it, and now you know better what to carry. My mother drove up from Wilmington last month and we had dinner at a restaurant near my apartment. Just the two of us, no particular occasion. She ordered the salmon. She laughed twice. Genuinely, the second time at something I said about a call that had gone sideways in a harmless way. The laugh was the one I remembered from before Ray, the one that was her real laugh and not the careful version she'd worn for 20 years. I drove home after and sat in a parking lot of my building for a few minutes with the engine off. I thought about the 9-year-old who wanted so badly to love him. I thought about the 22-year-old who left with 2 bags and a bus ticket and a terror she couldn't name. I thought about the woman who stood at a podium in a stiff new uniform while someone tried one last time to make her small in front of everyone watching. She didn't fall. That was always going to be the ending. She just had to get there.